Hello everybody, welcome to your first maths lesson of the week. I'm going to be trying to make all our maths lessons, well, as many as I can, more like this, because I'll be doing them in school as well. So you'll be getting this version of me at home, and then in school, those of you that are coming to school, you'll have the live version. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So this week we are going to be looking more at percentages, which we started last week, and I know some of you had a good go, which I'm really pleased about because it's a big chunk that we hadn't managed to cover before we closed. So we're going to start with a little bit of revision here. So this destination question you can see in front of you. What percentage is shaded in the diagram below? Just take a second to have a look at that and see what you think your answer is. So we've got here a 100 square. You may be able to see that it has got 10 going across and 10 going down. Sorry about the brief pause there. You may have heard the visitor that just came and joined me in the room, but I think she's settled down now. So as I was saying, we had 10 going across, we've got 10 going down, so altogether we've got 100 squares, which means we have 100%. And if we count how many shaded ones we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 are shaded, which means we've got 8% shaded. We will go over it a bit more today, but that was just a bit of revision from the work you did last week. So, what we need to remember is that percentages are always calculated out of 100. No matter what the object, no matter what the number, the whole is always calculated out of 100. You cannot have more than 100%. That's one whole. The only time you would see more than 100% is if, for example, a product is being sold and it says that there are you've got 150%, which means you've got a whole and another 50% on top of it. So you've got a whole and another half of that. And the other thing about that is how annoying it is when people from things like the X Factor say yes, 1,000,000% yes. That's impossible. It really annoys me. Okay, so if we have a look at this bead string, it's split into 10 groups of 10, which means we've got 100 beads. And there is a division on our bead string here. So if we count how many we've got on this side, we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 3. So on this side, as you can see over here, 73% of the bead string is on one side because there are 73 of the 100 equal parts. The percentages out of 100, 73 are on this side, so it's 73%. Which means on the other side, we've got the remainder of the 100 bead string, which is this one, 27% of the bead string. We have 27 beads, 10, 20, and there are the 7, 27 beads out of 100, which means it's 27%. We can talk about other percentages on here. We won't go into it too much at the moment. We can have 10% just by looking at these 10 red ones. We could have 20% by looking at the red and the white. So the whole thing is 100%, or one whole, which is 100%. That's the whole thing. And remember, they have to be equal. This section down here, we're going to look at in a bit more depth now, how to turn them into fractions, percentages into fractions. Before we do that, I just want to do a quick reminder for you. Another way to look at wholes, and when we split up wholes, is by using decimals and fractions. Decimals, fractions and percentages are all linked, and they all can be shown using an equivalent value. So I can have a decimal that has the equivalent value to a fraction that has the equivalent value to a percentage. So if you look at the diagram I've got here, here is my one whole. So 100 square in this case equals 1. Okay, that's 100% or 1. Okay. If we were to split that 1 into 10 sections, etc., they would all look like this. I can get 10 of those equal sections in my one whole. So if I were to just have this and nothing else, I would have no wholes, but I would have 1/10. And if you remember the place value, this is our ones column, this is our tenths column, and they're called tenths because you get 10 of them in a whole. So if I just have this, I've got 1/10. Okay. As a fraction, that is 1/10, 1/10, because I've got one of them out of a possible 10. So those values are equivalent. 0.1 is equivalent to 1/10. They have the same value, this value, in fact. That's a bit of a reminder. Before we move on, can you think about how much that would be as a percentage? If this is 100%, what would this be as a percentage? Well done if you said 10%. Look at the links here. Here's a 10, here's a 10, and although we don't need the 0 on the end for a decimal, here's a 10, but we don't actually need that 0, so we just say 0.1. They're all linked. Okay, so just to another reminder from last week, the word percentage means out of every 100. 7 out of every 100 is 7%. 15 out of every 100 is 15%. 60 out of every 100 is 60%. 24 out of percent means 24 out of 100. We can also write that, as you saw on the last screen, in a percentage, as a fraction and as a decimal. 24% is equivalent to 24 out of 100, which is equivalent to 2/10 and 4/100, 0.24. All of these have the same value, and in my 100 square it would be 2 of these whole tenths and 4 of these hundredths, so it would take me up to there. So that is 0.24 or 24 over 100 or 24%. They are all equivalent. Something that you might not need today, but I'm going to keep repeating this over and over and over again because it's really important you know it. Another way of saying of, as in 27% of 100, is saying multiplied by. 27% multiplied by 100, or 27% times 100, is the same as saying 27% of 100. So if you ever see a question that says 27% times 100, it's just 27% of 100, which is 27. So I'm not going to talk about that too much today because it will come up again and again during the week, but I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. Of is the same as multiplied. Okay, so let's have a look at some questions here that you might get. This first one, 14 over 100. That's our fraction. I want the percentage. So 14 over 100. If it's 14 out of 100, if you imagine that on 100 square, I've coloured in 14 of them, which means, because our 100 is whole, I've got 14% coloured in. Over here, here's our percentage, and I want the fraction. 34%, well, out of, if I've coloured in 34 of my 100 squares, that would make it 34 out of 100. So the fraction is 34 hundredths. Can you see how they're all linked? It doesn't always work like this. It only works like this when 100 is your whole. And you can have other numbers as your whole, but it still links to 100%. 100% will still be whatever the whole is. Let's have a look at this last one. 9 out of 100. What do you think that will be? Did you get 9%? Well done if you did. Okay, let's have a look at some decimals. So now we've got the percentage, but I want the decimal. Oh, sorry, the other way around. We've got the decimal, I want the percentage. So here we've got 6/10 and 8/100, which means 6 10 sticks are coloured in and 8 hundredths are coloured in, which means 68 of our little squares, or our hundredths, will be coloured in. So it's 68%. Here's our decimal. Here's our percentage. This time I want the decimal. 70%. That means 7 10 sticks. 70 little squares, 70 hundredths will be coloured in. So it is 0.70. But is there anything there you don't need? Well done if you noticed. You don't need that 0. So 70%, instead of saying 0.70, it's just 0.7. The only time you need that last 0 is if you're working with money. So for money, you keep the last 0, but we don't need it. But we don't need it for the moment. So 0.7 is the same as 70%, just without the last 0. This one down here, here's the decimal, here's the percentage. Now, look at your place value. You've got no tenths, but you've got 2 hundredths. That means you haven't got any 10 sticks. All you've got coloured in are 2 hundredths blocks in that entire 100 square. So all we've got here is 2%. Not 20%, 2%. So check that one really carefully. And then use that to look at this last one. 1%. Will that be 0.1? It would not be, because that would be a whole 10 stick. And we don't have a whole 10 stick. We've just got 1/100th block. So it's 0.01. No 10 sticks, just 1/100th block. So be really careful with those single digit percentages. 1 to all the way through up to 9%. It will be 0.0. Really be careful with those. Okay, so moving on to the work you're going to do today. You've got a few sheets that come from our Essentials Maths that we use at school. And I just want to show you what the colours mean on these sheets. When you see this red block, that's a reminder for you. So there's no work you have to do on those bits. It's just read this to give you a reminder. When you see the purple block, those are fluency questions. So they're the ones that you should just be able to answer straight off. You might need to think about them a bit, but they're the ones that you should just be able to answer with your knowledge. The green blocks are the thinking questions. They're the reasoning questions. They're the ones where you put your fluency into action. So there might be a word problem, or there might be a missing number question, or they might be putting them into context like money or measure. So those are ones that might need a bit more thinking. The blue blocks link to previous learning, and they won't be linked to what we're learning about today. So they won't be to do with fractions or percentages. They might be to do with something totally different, but it's just a little bit of a reminder on a different piece of learning. So these blocks, do look out for those on the sheets that you'll be doing. Okay, in the website and the files, you'll find a sheet that says Monday Maths. that goes with this video. The top of it looks like this, and here is that red block to show you that this is something you don't need to answer. It's just a little bit of information for you. And it starts with some purple, which are your fluency questions. You will have some purple, some green and some blue in this sheet. If you can't print it out, don't worry, just write the answers on a piece of paper. Tomorrow, I'll go through the answers to this sheet so that you know whether you've got them right or not. So at the beginning of tomorrow's video, I'll go through the answers to this sheet. If you didn't get any right, maybe you could go back and watch this video to see where you went wrong. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening. And if you are listening to this video, that might mean that I'll be seeing you on Thursday, because the rest of you'll be doing it live. So you won't be listening to this video. So I will see you guys on Thursday. Don't forget, there'll be another video tomorrow that will give you the answers to this video, and then we'll move us on because there's a lot more we can do with percentages. This is just the easy stuff at the moment. Okay, I will speak to you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.